Hey, it's Chris. What are we doing? We're talking the best of May. The best things that happened in May, right? The board game news, the crowdfunding campaigns, the games I've played. And why, again, highs and lows, right? Because some very interesting things going alongside of this that are worth recapping, discussing, and just pointing out. Because, you know what? I just love doing it. And at the same time, trying not to get myself in too much trouble. I'll try. So, where do you want to start today? Well, you know what? Let's start with the news, the biggest news stuff, right? The biggest news stuff that I would say over the last month. Does timing of content matter, right? I covered this in one of the news videos. Do you care? Does it matter? Does it matter if you see stuff for a campaign a week in advance, 2 days in advance, on the day of launch, on the day of retail release? Does that affect your buying? Because I'll make the argument right here at the beginning. Yes, companies try to market the freaking FOMO out of you right away, right? Right away. Do you prefer the embargo situation, a lot of the Stonemeyers, when all of the expansion content and production of everything, gameplay-wise and other, for Expeditions Gears of Corruption came out, right? Can't post until X. So, do you mind that? Or you have other companies that say, do not post until around the crowdfunding campaign. Or a la the latest Grim Coven situation, right? Where the second you get that prototype, you better have a video out the next 2 days, and you just let the people making it decide. But again, throw it at the wall and see how many we can get in a short period of time with people trying to drive it up that way. So does that influence you? Do you care? Do you have a preference? How do you feel about that? Which leads me with one of those more than the other, the significant rise of previews. And again, dedicating a whole separate video to this if I ever release it, because I'm really going to get myself in trouble then. But just how many preview videos there were for Grim Coven, for example, right? As I said in the crowdfunding roundup, I spent almost 16 minutes ranting on the crowdfunding roundup when Grim Coven launched, right? That there were, 20 plus videos at the time of launch, but there were really like 1-2-ish videos that actually gave like significant opinions. All of the rest of them were pretty much just overview, arching descriptions, board game geek wise, or playthroughs. And again, I hear you in the comment section, right? Chris, I could care less about your talking head opinion, BS, right? I don't care what your opinion is. And I go, great. That is awesome. I want to watch a playthrough. I want to read a rulebook. Well, again, no rulebook. Again, not anywhere near finalized. See, Stalker took about a year for them to get the final rulebook out, and they gave you 2 weeks between the final rulebook and the actual Pledge Manager closing. Or you run into, well, this is just a partial of a partial. And again, I haven't watched all the videos on Grim Coven, so I can't speak, but I'm assuming they didn't do like 4 different prototypes, so everybody had a different, so like one size fits all, meaning you're going to see the same scenario with a slight twist on how they played versus they played, but it's going to be the same thing. And it's going to be a partial of a partial, right? Stalker had a couple different modes. You didn't see any of those. The Witcher, the old world, didn't have 2 of the modes that ended up coming with it later down the line, cooperative and solo. I can speak from firsthand experience with that one, because I only had a partiality of the competitive. But if it's trying to do everything, right, as Grim Coven is. Guys, this is just a scenario boss battler. I said boss dribbler on the outtake there. But day one, they say, oh wait, you want a little campaign to go with it? Here you go, right? Which leads me to the next point of, do you need campaign games for everything? Does everything have to be a campaign game? Everything has to be nowadays. So that's one of the big things. I could go on for another 5 minutes with this at least, but we're going to get to the next thing. How do you feel when retailers, broad retailers, start scalping prices, right? When does it become less friendly and more, again, recognizing that, folks, there's a reason I don't have a sponsor on this channel. that becomes a business, right? We've seen it now with Star Wars Unlimited. Very crazy things. Asmodee vastly as overpromised. People were ordering straight from their site at MSRP for $119.95. $119.99, whatever. And then a whole bunch of refunds have come out. Cool Stuff, Miniature Market, Card House, I don't know, a couple of these, you know, the typical ones that you're recognizing, have recognized that too. And they've said, well, we were selling the Spark of Rebellion boxes for $100. And the MSRP is $120. But we realized that Asmodee's kind of screwing the production and the amount of boxes up. And there's tons of demand for it. So the pre-order goes live. And they're charging anywhere between $120 and realistically $170, and some even up to $200 for pre-orders for a game that's not out. I mean, talk about freaking FOMO. We talk about it from publishers. We talk about it from crowdfunding. Now we have literally it happening at retail from the stores themselves. I'm sorry. You can try to have your parasocial relationship with me, board game stores, by sending me the cute emails, making your own whatevers. But that leaves a bad taste in my mouth because inevitably, if you think you can do it there, you might try and do it elsewhere. I don't really like that. I don't. Again, I'll be a minority. I'll be an old man shouting at the clouds from my lawn with my pitchfork and my, wooden torch. I was going to screw up the analogy anyway, so I decided to go full bore. But that's irritating, right? That's not enamoring me or enthralling me with your services. Because frankly speaking, I don't need your services. I mean, right? I'll buy it from the publisher. I'll buy it from the crowdfunder. I'll buy it at secondhand market prices, or I'll trade for it. Buying at retail, just like buying at crowdfunding, completely motherfreaking not necessary. You may not like it. You may not like it. What else? Again, we talked about the expeditions. We talked about the Grim Covens. Those were the two big. The other big name release that I really am probably most excited about, actually the Radlands expansion. You weren't expecting me to go that way, were you? Radlands, right? Give me some more freaking Radlands. Now, it's just going to be camps, apparently. So, I mean, that's not, like, super enthralling, but it's a freaking sweet game. Freaking sweet game. You know me, I got a type. I love that style of things, right? I love head-to-head duelers. I love them, and that's one of the best ones out there, right? Talking about, like, the difference between, like, a campaign-ish, a higher overhead, a meta, maybe. Radlands is more of the equivalent of the scenario-driven, if you will. And it works as a one-off, and I love it. So, you're giving me more of a good thing. Cult of Chrome. And I hope that's like a little tie-in, crossover, wink, wink, nod, nod to Thunder Road Vendetta. I don't know, I'm making up stuff as I go along, folks. If you're new to this channel, that's just what I do. So there's that. Magkala, we're getting a little bit more of that side of things. And what else is kind of out there right now? Well, we got the Star Trek Captain's Chair, the Imperium deck building style of things, which, gosh, please put out a better mother freaking rulebook. So many rulebooks nowadays. I hate to say it, and I was doing another rulebook for the crowdfunding look back earlier, and they're like crowdsourcing the rulebook editing. And this is a big, major company. And they're like, hey, why don't you look at our rule book and see if you can tell us if it's any good, or we have any misspellings, or does this actually... You know what? Part of me says, you know what? There are some astute eyes out there. 2, this is your job, not ours. Right? Am I the only one looking at that going, okay, let's get rid of the job that we're supposed to do and we'll just crowdsource it on you. So, again, I just look at that and I go, really? Really about that? So anyway, I'm done with this soapbox. That was the big news of the month. Let's go to crowdfunding, because you love hearing about crowdfunding and my thoughts on crowdfunding. I'm always entertaining on crowdfunding, right? Okay, so boom. Let's start off with an expansion. Oath. Oath launching at the wee end of the month. Now, I don't know why I went to the accent there just for a second. But Oath expansion, right? I just did my Arcs Oath in Space sort of unboxing, playthrough, idea, thoughts behind it. There's already some concern. I forgot that this actually happened, but people were putting in the comments in the Board Game Geek sections that apparently, you know, it's sort of backwards. They went backwards.